I just had such a wonderful conversation with a dear friend of mine, Adam Tarver. He's a college pastor at Prince Avenue Baptist Church just outside of Athens, Georgia. He is helping lead a exploding college ministry, and he gives such good insight into all things faith, developing faith, growing faith, but also in great advice of things that he sees in college students today that the way to impact them, to way to engage with the next generation in passing on faith. So here's my dear friend, Adam Tarver. Welcome to Belief Builders. I'm Matthew Eford. Join me as I sit down with individuals who have found strength, direction, and purpose through their faith. We'll look at the moments that tested their beliefs, the experiences that strengthened them, and the wisdom they've gained along the way. Join us as we build our faith one conversation at a time. Welcome, everybody, to Belief Builders. I have my dear friend, Adam Tarver, here. Adam and I worked together at Oconee Heights Baptist Church here in Athens for a number of years, knew each other in school. He actually also worked with us, which was a really cool season in our business when we were first starting out, which I'm very thankful for the time he invested with us. And he has since moved over to Prince Avenue Baptist Church as their college pastor there, helping lead a growing and thriving college ministry. I'm so excited to have Adam here with you. I have Adam here with us this morning. So Adam, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Of course, brother. Well, we'll just, as we kind of get started out, share with us how you came to faith. What was that kind of journey for you?
Yeah, great question. Lots of ups and downs. The short version of the story, I have the incredible blessing of being raised by mom and dad who both dearly love Jesus and who love me really, really well, and still love me really, really well. I understand, especially now working with college students, I see very firsthand that a lot of people do not have that you know opportunity and blessing, and so I'm grateful for that. So I mean, I grew up hearing about Jesus. I mean, from as early as I can remember, similar to the way that you grew up, I know, and like just like in the church all the time. My mom and my dad neither are in vocational ministry, but they both were a part of a team that planted a church in Macon.
Cool.
Whenever I was like, I don't know, 7 years old, something like that. And so they were a part of a church in downtown Macon. This church decided they wanted to plant North Macon. And my mom and dad were part of the team and said, yeah, we'll go be part of that. And
Cool.
so we were like very involved with that church. So I grew up in that church. That church is Northway Church on Xavier Road in Macon. If any of your listeners from Macon, great church, go check it out. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so, but as with many of us, I mean, it's an incredible blessing to grow up in a home and a family that prioritizes the teachings of Jesus, prioritizes church, prioritizes faith. But at some point, that's got to come real for you, right? And
Sure.
that's got to be, you got to transition from the faith of my mom and dad to my faith. A big part of my story has been I've always struggled with anxiety, insecurity. As a teenager, I had really, really bad social anxiety. Was just riddled by it. I was in counseling, on and off medication. And I remember being invited to a youth event at Northway Church by some friends of mine. And I was honestly really nervous to go because it was just like that, those kind of environments made me nervous.
Sure.
But I went, and I can still remember like standing in the worship center. I don't remember who was speaking. I can't even tell you what the dude was speaking on necessarily, but he was talking about just freedom in Christ. He was talking about how Jesus came, lived, died, was risen from the grave so that you could have life, so that you could walk without fear, so that you could have peace. And I do just something clicked in my heart and in my mind. I don't know how else to describe it other than like just the Holy Spirit illuminated my eyes to see. And I finally trusted Jesus in that building that day. I'm not, I don't want to sound like super hokey or anything like that, but I'm just telling you what I experienced. Anecdotally,
Sure.
what I experienced is that after that moment, I felt such a levity of freedom and just this joy. And I mean, you know me now, you know me as an adult. Like, I mean, my life's not characterized by social anxiety anymore.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
I love being around people. I love the people of God. My relationship with Jesus has grown tremendously. Of course, there's been ups and downs. College was very formative
Okay.
for me.
In what
Big
ways?
reason.
Yeah. So talk to us about some of college time.
Yeah, man. So I came to UGA. I moved from after I graduated high school. I moved up here to Athens in 2012 as a freshman. Moved into the sixth floor of Creswell Hall.
Oh yeah.
Great place. Terrible dorm. But yeah, man, like I moved up here with like two friends. One of which was the girl that I was dating at the time. And so that first year it wasn't the greatest for me. It's actually that's the year that I met you. It was
Yeah.
whenever I was a freshman. You were in leadership at
Yeah.
BCM, the Baptist Collegiate Ministries there at UGA. And so like I had some connection to community for sure, but that first year I kind of stayed in the fringes somewhat. Like I wasn't super plugged in anywhere. Like I was kind of like in a bunch of places, but not
Sure.
dug in anywhere. Right. Didn't have like genuine community outside of like my one friend from high school and the girl that I was dating. And so that that spring semester, so like my second semester at UGA, the girl that I was dating, we broke up. I kind of had a falling out with that buddy of mine. It was just this whole mess, and so I was kind of left at like, what do I do, right? And I made a lot of bad decisions that year. I started hanging out with my roommate and some of his buddies, and we started just, I mean, doing the stereotypical things that freshmen do whenever they're lost. You know, I'm
Yeah.
going downtown, I'm doing this stuff, and I'm like, it feels really broken and empty. And it's one of those things like, I know Jesus, the Spirit of God's in me. I know this is wrong. And so, like, I can't keep doing this. And
Yeah.
so I finally confided in another mutual friend of ours, Cole Flanders,
Yeah.
and another buddy of mine at BCM named Jack Smith. I
Yeah.
remember talking to the two of them and was just like, hey, I can't keep doing this. And those two guys, man, they challenged me. They brought me into community. I got really, really involved that spring semester at BCM. That then led to me meeting, another key figure in both of our lives, Brant Aiken.
Yeah.
And Brant, I don't know how old Brant is. He's older than you. He's older
Yeah.
than
He's
me.
a couple years older than I am.
Let's just call him late 30s,
Yeah.
Emphasis on the late 30s
Yeah.
for Brent.
He's pushing 40. He's definitely pushing.
He's definitely pushing 40, right? I hope he sees just that one clip of this podcast. And no, I mean, like Brant, I got introduced to Brant through the guy who's the campus minister at BCM. His name is Franklin. Franklin introduced me to Brant. There's a lot of names here. Franklin introduced me to Brant. And Brant, I mean, I don't know how else to describe that other than like just a divinely intervening, like just a relationship that has been so formative in my life.
Yeah.
Of like Brant became an older brother figure to me, just mentored me, like loved on me, taught me how to read the Bible, taught me how to disciple others, taught me how to preach. I mean, just gave me opportunity upon opportunity. It's because of Brant that I ended up interning at Oconee Heights, where,
Yeah.
you and I worked together for a while after that. And so it was really through key relationship. And that's really a theme of my faith journey. I think it's just relationships and people that were put forth the time and put up with a lot of frustrations to get me to a place where I could have personal encounters with Jesus and grow my own faith journey. And so college was marked by a lot of that. And that is one of the main reasons why I do what I do now, which is lead a college ministry here at Prince. So
I love that. Yeah. And that's so cool. The several of those folks you named are friends of the podcast. So Franklin, Brant, and Cole. So thankful for their time and investment in you and also in me and sharing here on Belief Builders. But I do love that you pointed out the continuation and the kind of the theme within your life of those relationships, right? From your parents and the call that they answered of helping plant the church. And then with the friends that invited you to the youth group, to getting connected at BCM, to getting connected to our dear friend Brant Aiken, and allowing that mentorship to go. And I'm sure it continues to color the way and influence the way that you're leading at Prince.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I was actually telling somebody this last night, that like even just I think about the way that I study the Bible, and especially the way that I study the Bible in order to preach.
Yeah.
That is all very heavily influenced by Brant. And I owe a lot to Brant. As far as those things are concerned, he introduced me to a lot of things and just was very, very supportive, helpful, encouraging, put up with a lot of probably really, really poor teaching early on.
Yeah.
And he's like mentoring me, like giving me opportunities with the student ministry at Oconee Heights, and eventually on Sunday mornings and stuff with, another key
Yeah.
figure in our lives, Rob.
Yep.
And so, yeah, man. Yeah. It's been a key theme, and relationships are something that my wife, Jillian, and we put a lot of value on because we both just seen the benefit of that in our lives.
Yeah, I love that. I love to see how the Lord works through his people. And
Mm-hmm.
and it's such an incredible way. The discipleship, the mentorship is about being connected to people. So I love that you saw that in yourself, that you early in college, that you're spending a lot of times being spread real thin. You weren't really going deep with anybody, and then you had that formative conversation with Cole of like, hey, man, I need some help. I've got to have
Mm-hmm.
some accountability. I've got to have some mentorship. I've got to have some guys around me. We've said here on the podcast often, Proverbs 13:20, he who walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools suffers harm. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
such a your life is a testament to that. And so I'm thankful
100%.
that you've chosen to surround yourself with wise people. So give us some wisdom, share with us some wisdom. How do you allow your faith to influence the decisions that you make? So you came to college, you're now post college serving in a college ministry. What advice do you give to college students or young adults or those maybe new to faith that they're trying to engage with their faith and help it impact the way that they're living on a daily life?
Right. So great question. I get it a lot, especially from like, whenever a student hits that like junior year, they start to think
Yeah.
about, oh, I'm not going to like live in this college bubble forever,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, one of the biggest things that I tell students is be patient, man. Like, just like, you don't have to have everything figured out right now. I'm 31 years old right now. There is no way. You knew me very well whenever I was 21.
Yeah.
There's no way 10 years ago at 21 that I would have told you, oh, yeah, I'll probably be a college pastor,
Yeah.
at Prince Avenue Baptist Church. Like, that was not a category in my mind. Right. And so I think the biggest things that I tell students a lot, like we don't make decisions in a vacuum. Like, don't make decisions in isolation. He who isolates himself seeks his own ruin. And so, like, have good community around you that's speaking into again, that's been a key part of my faith journey. And then just, I don't know, the older I get and the more I walk with the Lord and the more I step into like more responsibility and work and family and stuff, I just try the best that I can to have an open-handed mentality
I love
of,
that.
I will go where you want me to go and I will do what you want me to do.
Yeah.
I cause myself a lot of turmoil trying to put the puzzle pieces together on my own, in
Sure.
my own understanding, in my own power. And you were a part of that with me, of like in a positive way, like me trying to figure that out. Right. Like, I came to UGA. I was good at math and science, and I'm like, I'll just be an engineer.
Yeah.
Those two things go together. I took 2 weeks of engineering classes, and I was like, nope, not doing that. And so I quickly changed my degree to agribusiness,
Yep.
and I wanted to work in the coffee industry. Like, that was like a big driving factor for me. Of like, I love coffee, I'm passionate about it. There's coffee farmers in all these third world countries that are taken advantage of, and like, there's high opportunity. And this is a hugely growing industry in the West. And so anyway, so I pursued that for a long time, and ended up getting to a point where I was like working at a local roaster in town, and helping them import green coffee and all that kind of stuff. And that's a longer story, but the door closed there. And that's whenever I came to you, and I was like,
Yeah.
hey, Matthew, like, here's the deal. I'll give you a thumbs up on accident. Sorry. But like, I need to make money. I'm working at this church at this point. And so, like, again, relying on relationships with people, and you were very gracious to give me an opportunity working with you, at Mosquito Joe. Did that for probably about a year, I
Yeah.
guess,
Year and a half.
something,
Yeah.
year and a half, something like that. And just worked through those opportunities, and continued to just kind of try to see what the Lord was doing in my life. And through that process of me coming to work with you, and that was also in the same time frame of, I was getting more responsibility at Oconee Heights, because
Hmm.
that's whenever our friend Brant had stepped away from Oconee Heights,
Yeah.
and I had kind of taken some of his responsibility. And I felt like the Lord really began to confirm in me giftings, desires, and passions to invest in the local church. And, I'll hear young guys sometimes say, I feel a calling to be a pastor or whatever. And I'm like, that's great. But calling to me, it doesn't need to just be an internal sense of what I want to do. It
Yeah.
needs to be affirmed by the people around you, the people who
Yeah.
are in relationship with you, the people who have seen your gifting, seen you operate. And I had that. I had people like yourself. I had people like Brant. I had people like Rob Bailey looking at me and saying, like, no, Adam, like, you are gifted to teach. You are gifted to disciple others. This is something that I see in you. And very graciously, both as for you as my friend and my employer at the time, like you kind of like released me to say, no, like go pursue this. And
Yeah.
Rob in the same way, if like Rob was the senior pastor at Oconee Heights whenever we were both there. And the more I had conversations with him about this, he in a similar way was like, hey man, like you should be pursuing this, like go pursue it.
Yeah.
And so that all kind of coincided with the opportunity to come on staff at Prince. And so that's kind of a long-winded answer. I hope that answers
No,
your
no, no.
question. But
That's
like that's
fantastic. Yeah, and I
yeah.
love that mentality of the open-handed, right? But
Yes.
it's easy to say. It's so hard to do
Of
because
course it is. Yeah.
we love to control. We love to
Mm-hmm.
control ourselves. We love to try to control other people, especially as a new dad. Like you will
Mm-hmm.
learn as your daughter gets older. You would want to control the things that she does and say, and there's very very little to nothing that we can actually control. And
Mm-hmm.
so, getting to the place in your faith to where you say, you know what, Lord, I just trust you.
Mm-hmm.
And trust looks like to me an open hand. Trust looks like to
Mm-hmm.
me whatever you call me to, I'm going to trust you. And so, for me, right? I mean, you were a phenomenal employee. You were somebody that worked hard, that treated customers well, that we could trust, like all the things. And you're a friend of mine, and I loved working with you. And I remember that those as we're getting closer to time of you and I talking, like, hey, this season's coming to an end. Man,
Mm-hmm.
I remember wrestling with the Lord, being like, okay, God, what are you doing? Like, why? I could see such a long future here working alongside Adam in this capacity, and just trying to take it and say, you know what? Instead of trying to control it, I'm going to give an open hand. And it allowed us to, keep a relationship instead of burning a bridge, and being able to encourage you as you go on. And that was
Mm-hmm.
such a testament to God's faithfulness to see where he's now taken our business since
Right.
you've left. Not
Yeah.
because you left, but God continues to put other people in place. And so I love that. I love that
Mm-hmm.
mentality of just trying to have open hands as you go through life.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's been, and it's a freeing place to be. Like, if it's really hard to get there, but when you do get there, it is a freeing place to be.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you've experienced it. Anybody who like is seriously trying to follow Jesus, I feel like has experienced it, of like trying to grasp that control and being frustrated that you don't have it.
Yeah.
And then, but whenever you come to the understanding that I don't have it, and that's actually really good because I know the one who does,
Yeah.
and he holds all things in his hands,
Yeah.
and he's good, and he loves me. And so I'm just going to have the posture of a child and say, you know what? I'm going to follow the will of my father, and I'm going to trust this is going to work out.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man, like it's hard to get there. It's really hard to get there.
Sure.
I love that. Like Dallas Willard has this quote of like, anyone who tells you that following Jesus is easy is a liar. And I'm like,
I love
yeah,
that.
that's so true.
Amen.
It's not easy at all. But whenever you get to the place of that surrender, it's freeing, right? And even like right now, like Jillian, I have no idea. Like people, people are always asking, what's next for you? You're gonna do college ministry forever? And I'm like, I don't know. Like I'm okay. I can genuinely with integrity sit here and tell you I'm okay with not knowing right now.
Yeah.
Like it's fine.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be as faithful as I can where I'm at until God makes it clear it's time to do something else. And so
that.
that's where we're at. So,
and it's such, you said, your heavenly father, right? As a dad, I see that I tell my boys so much that I've gotten to where I ask them the question, do you know that I love you? They're saying, yes, Dad, we know you love me. Like then you can trust me. It does not always make sense to you in the moment, but
right.
I'm sometimes asking you to take steps that you don't understand, but know it's always colored with my love for you. And we have our Heavenly Father whose love is perfect, who does not make mistakes. We are flawed dads in the moment that we make mistakes, but I love that idea. So talk to us about kind of in line of practicality, the open-handed. What kind of habits or practices have you found have been really helpful in you building your faith?
Great question. Yeah. I mean, there's there are the obvious ones of like you're not gonna grow in a relationship with Jesus if you're not spending time with Jesus. That's sounds cliche to say, but it's so true. Uh, and so like just the importance of normal time alone in the quiet with the Lord, Bible open. I'm just like trying to learn and receive from the Lord. For me, and this is not going to be true for everybody who listens, obviously, but like I have the unique privilege to be able to like to teach the Bible a
Yeah.
lot. Um, and so for me, it is very important for me to have devotional time with the Lord that is apart from anything that I'm preparing for to teach.
I love that.
People have different philosophies on that, but for me, like if my devotional time is all on like what I'm preparing to teach, it's very easy for me to get into teaching mode and not learning mode, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I have to have things that I'm reading apart from what, like so with our college students, we just finished a 6 week study on the Beatitudes.
Nice.
And so I spent a lot of time over the summer in the Beatitudes, but I was also reading other things like devotionally, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And in the past 6 weeks, I've been reading through like Leviticus and stuff like, not Leviticus. Why did I say Leviticus? I have been.
That's a hard one to read through. Yeah.
Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes is not even close. But I've been reading through Ecclesiastes. And yeah, just having something else that is just for me, just in my time with the Lord, that may become a series at some point later, but it only becomes a series because it's been formative for me. And so that has been huge for me. Another thing that is so important to me is to have relationships with people that you can be really honest with.
Okay.
I think in our culture, like, and whenever I say in our culture, I mean like evangelical world in the South, right? Like that's where we are. We both live in like in the Southeast. And it's people like to have this like, I'm not hating on people, but people like to have this like polished mentality of like everything is fine,
Sure.
like put the smile on, put the church clothes on, go to church on Sunday, and life could be falling apart and nobody knows it. I think that's especially true in ministry. Like whenever you get into vocational ministry, sometimes there's this pressure to perform and to posture yourself as the person who always has the answers.
Yeah.
And as the person who has life figured out. So you can come to me and ask me your questions because I got life figured out. And so I've tried really hard, especially the past few years, to cultivate relationships with people that I can just be honest and real with, right? And that I'm confessing sin to, that I'm like being honest with my like frustrations, that I am, if I got something going on at work and it's something that's really difficult and taxing, like I can just go to them and be like, hey, these are the things that are really irritating me right now, and things that are that I can just process all of my like negative emotions with. Like you just need people in your life that you can be vulnerable and real with. That has been transformative for me. I mean, I can keep going. Another one that's been really, really powerful, especially in the past few years. I've started doing a lot of like reading and study on Sabbath and rest.
Okay. John Mark Comer.
Dude, yeah, there's probably like 4 of his books over there.
Yeah, I've got a couple of them up. So.
Yeah, man. And so like, again, I don't know about you. That was just something that was never taught to me growing up. Like we never, the Sabbath was like, that was the 7th day whenever God rested from creation. And that's like the extent of what I knew about Sabbath.
Sure.
And then there were these weird laws about it that people got mad at Jesus for breaking, whenever he was in the news, like living on earth. But no, like a couple of years ago, Jillian and I started taking that really seriously and just trying to protect one day a week where like we don't do any work, and we just like we stop, we rest, we delight, we worship, we spend time, extended time with the Lord, we spend time with each other, we spend time in community, we take naps, like just like rest, mind, body, soul.
Yeah.
And dude, just unbelievable, transformative, and again, really hard to practice at first because everything in me says go, 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 go.
Sure.
And stopping is really hard. And so, but yeah, there's just something about it. We try our best to have Sabbath on Saturdays for us, just because Sundays is busy around church and stuff like that. And so on Friday, we're trying to like do all the things that we need to do, laundry, clean up around the house, do those kind of things. And then Saturday, we try to genuinely sleep in a little bit later if Eleanor will allow it. Like go to the farmer's market, make a good like brunch, like just like stuff like that. That it's just like restful. We try to spend time with like some friends in the evening, and it's just that day I look forward to Saturdays like every week because
Yeah.
it's just like I know I'm going to get some that's going to be refreshing for my soul.
Yeah. I
It's been
love
really, really
that.
helpful.
I love the be still and know that I'm God, right?
Yes, so
there's so
important.
much unpacked in that. One that we are not, most
Hmm.
importantly, we are not God. But there's a part of our relationship with the Lord that is based in stillness.
Hmm.
It's based in not in hurry. It's based in rest. It's based in the community. It's based in the relationship. But also what you're talking about, which I think is a very important distinction, the idea of Sabbath is not that you're just going to sit at the house on the couch all day long. And that's
Right.
all you're going to do is just sit there. That
Hmm.
for some people, that may be restful, but for
Hmm.
others, that may not. That may be all.
No.
And so
Hmm.
finding where you engage with the Lord and what you can, ways you can worship Him, being in
Yeah.
community, going to the farmer's market, I love that.
Yeah. I can't, I wish I could remember who said this. This is not an original quote by any stretch of the imagination. I heard someone say this and it was helpful for me that if you work with your mind, you should Sabbath with your hands. And if you work with
Nice.
your hands, you should Sabbath with your mind. And so, like,
I like that.
for me, my job is not a very physically demanding job. I spend a lot of time reading and studying and having conversations that are very emotional in nature and that kind of thing. And so, like, I'm not spraying for mosquitoes anymore and climbing
Yeah.
on roofs and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so because of that, like I want it, the things that are restful to me. Like don't get me wrong. Like I love sitting down on a Saturday afternoon and watching football. But the things that are restful for me would be to get out and be active and go do
Yeah.
something. And so like I've taken up. I'm training for a half marathon right now, and so
Nice.
like
Yeah. Cool.
I do.
Congratulations.
Yeah, yeah. Well, congratulate me when I get it
Yeah.
done.
When are you running?
I'm doing the Ath November 3rd,
Nice. Yeah.
and
Cool.
so yeah, and so like I do my long run on Saturday. So I don't know. I've gotten to the point in my life where like I don't sleep in much anymore,
Yeah.
like and so like I'll still wake up early on a Saturday and go run for a while. But I'm running through 5 Points and around campus there at UGA and like just kind of watching the city come to life essentially.
Yeah.
And there's something about that that's refreshing to me. And then I'll take a nap in the afternoon, like stuff like that. And so it's like doing things like that, going to the driving range to hit golf balls with, another mutual friend of ours, like John Bailey,
Yeah.
stuff like that's fun for me. Being active, going on walks with our dog and stuff like that. Like those things are refreshing to me. Yeah. The thing that was helpful for me is like learning that Sabbath is not just like a treat yourself day
Yeah.
where, you ever seen that show Parks and
Yeah.
Rec
Oh
where
yeah.
it's like,
Treat yourself.
yeah, yeah, Tom Havert's like treat yourself. It's like
Yeah.
it's not a self-indulgence day. It's a time to do the things that are going to be refreshing and generally restorative to you. And
Yeah.
so that's been helpful for
It
me.
forces you to remind yourself that you're what we said earlier, not in control. It does not rely
Mm-hmm.
on you. That
Mm-hmm.
there's more to your life than just you and what you can
Right.
do in a given day.
Right. Yeah.
It's a
No,
great
completely agree.
reminder. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were talking earlier. You said some stuff about discerning God's call in your life. Let's go a little bit deeper into that.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to somebody? You talked about don't do life. We don't make decisions in a vacuum. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. Um, what else would you? Let's go a little bit deeper into that idea of helping someone discern God's call in their life.
Yeah. I mean, for me, whenever so again, I don't have any original thoughts on this. Everything that I've learned, I've learned anecdotally through my own life and just through reading people that are way smarter than me. But JD Greer, who's pastor of Summit Church up in the Raleigh
Yep.
Durham area, he has this fantastic quote that he tells to young adults, college students all the time. That if you're trying to discern God's will for your life, that you need to do what you're good at for the glory of God, somewhere strategic for the mission of God. Like that's
Nice.
his quote. Do
Yeah, I
what you're
like
good
that.
at for the glory of God, somewhere strategic for the mission of God. And so I talk to college students about that all the time. It's like, all right, like let's talk about your natural giftings and passions. I think sometimes I don't know, man. Like I just from my experience with dealing with college students, I think college students assume that God's going to call them to go somewhere that they hate to do something
Yeah,
that they don't want to do. And it's like, that's like, I don't know where that idea comes from. It comes from some kind of like religious guilt or something. It doesn't come from
sure.
the Bible. Um, and that's not to say that the other end of the spectrum is true, that God's just going to like give you cushy things to do until you die. Like that's not true either. But if we believe in a God who has knit all of us together in our mother's womb, if we believe in a God who is sovereign over all creation, if we believe in a God who knows all of his children by name, and we believe that we've all been created in his image to reflect his glory, that means that we have to believe to some of like our passions and our skills and our giftings have been given to us by God for a reason,
Yeah.
right? And so I try to get students to think about, like, what are you good at? What do you gravitate towards? What comes naturally to you that may not come naturally to others? Like what fires you up? What energizes you? And what can we begin to think about that like incorporates that as a job? And let's think about it as a job, and let's think about, okay, now not only how can you find this as a job, but like let's think about where you go to do that job,
Yeah.
right? One of the things, if I could like shake up anything in a college student specifically, but I guess anybody, is this idea that like, oh, I'm just going to get a job that affords me to have the lifestyle that I want in the place that I want, so I can have the comfort level that I want.
Yeah.
And so we see students come through Athens all the time who graduate and they go to Atlanta, to get the job that pays the highest, and they just do that. And I'm not hating on that per se, but I'm just saying, like, if you get an engineering degree, say you're really good at engineering, or say you're like, you want to be a doctor, or say you want to be a lawyer, or a businessman of any sort, like you can go anywhere, right? Why not go to somewhere like Boston, or like to the Pacific Northwest, or even overseas potentially, where you could live your life with some really strategic purpose and use your life for the advancement of God's mission. One of the big things that I try to like not dissuade students from, but like at least try to like shake up in students, is that calling, like for me, I'm dealing a lot with like 18 to 25-year-olds that are trying to like do life in a way that glorifies God, which is a
Sure.
great thing. But a lot of them assume that in order to do that, they've got to have a job like me,
Yeah.
or be a missionary like in North Africa somewhere. And those things are great, and we need people to do those things. But we also need people like yourself who are entrepreneurs. Like you're a great example of this. Like your natural giftings, you're great with people. You're very organizationally minded. You are very entrepreneurial in spirit. All right. So many of your talents and your giftings would be wasted in like a job like mine,
Sure.
potentially. You know what I'm saying? Not wasted, but at least not
Yeah.
fully
Sure. I see what you're saying.
realized. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? And so it's like you were able to do so many things that I'm not gifted to do. And so like you're in sectors and environments that I'm not in, and we need people who love Jesus in sectors and environments like what you're in. And so I don't know, man. Like I think for me, it's thinking about what you're good at, thinking about what you're passionate about, and really trying to find ways to just go after those things in a way that glorifies God, and believe that there's some freedom there, and like that God's not trying to like, make you do something you hate for the long haul until you die. And
I
like
love that. Yeah,
you
I
know what
think
I mean?
it's such good advice, right? It's a good gut check. I know growing up that it felt like that there was this time where you got saved, at least in the church I grew up in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Amazing church, amazing leadership. I'm not trying to dog them, but in the culture that I grew up in here in the Bible Belt, it was you get saved, and then you have your teenage rebellious years, and then you come back to the Lord, and you kind of get on fire for the Lord, and then the next logical thing is you go to seminary.
Right.
And it's like, well, okay, that's fine if that's where the Lord's calling you to, but
Mm-hmm.
aren't there so many other places, right? And so then I actually started reading the Bible, and then you read Ephesians 4, and he talks about that the pastors, the teachers, the evangelists, the leaders in the church, their job is to equip the saints, believers, for the work of ministry. And I'm
Right.
like, huh,
Mm-hmm.
that's odd. And then I look at my dad in a new light, and I'm like, oh, that's been his calling. His calling in the
Mm-hmm.
medical field is to go be a missionary. He just happens to be a surgeon. That's the
Right.
skill set. That's the way that the Lord led him to. But man, he has impacted the world in a
Mm-hmm.
way that your typical Sunday service is not going to impact. He's having conversations that are
100%.
standard pastors not having. Doesn't mean that one's better than the other. It just means that God is equipping all of us for the work of ministry.
Yes, dude. And yeah, I try to tell students all like you like yourself, your dad, prime examples, like people who love Jesus, who are in the business sector, medical sector, whatever. Like you just have access to people that I don't have access to, you
Yeah.
know, and you're gonna be able to have conversations with people that I'm never gonna have, at least not in the same way. And that's just such an incredible gift. John, again, one of our mutual friends, John,
Yeah.
every time we play golf together, like this is like a running joke with the two of us, is, that we'll go play golf together and it's the two of us. And inevitably, if it's a busy day, we're going to get paired up with two other people. Right.
Yeah.
And you play like the first couple of holes or whatever. And the like eventual question always comes like, well, what do you do?
Yeah.
Like and I hate that question because
Oh yeah.
I have to look at somebody and be like, I'm a pastor. And it's like the vibe just changes,
Yep.
right? The vibe completely, unless they're a believer, the vibe changes. And that, that's a joking, like I'm saying that jokingly, but there are things that you can do, conversations that you can have. And people just, I don't know, it's just different. And it's like, we need people who are in love with Jesus, on fire for Jesus in all of these different sectors. We don't need, just the people who are really serious about Jesus to be in vocational ministry. That's not helpful at all.
We had Justin Seibert, him from softball when we used to play at Coney Heights. He's a part of Cafe 1040. He's on their board, and they send missionaries in the college age, short-term missionaries that are looking for interested in long-term mission work. And one of the things that he was talking about, and their organization talks about, is you've got to have a skill. If you're going to go into the mission field overseas, specifically in unreached people groups, you have to come in with some kind of marketable skill. You can't just come in as, hey, I'm going to teach the Bible to you. That is not at all. You're not going to get in. But if you come in and you say, hey, I'm really good at math. Okay, that's fantastic. I'm going to be an engineer, and I feel called to be an engineer on mission, and I feel called to go into one of these places that no other pastor can just walk into. But because I'm an engineer, because I have that skill set, because I invested the time in equipping myself during college, post-college, whatever it is, that now I have access into the mission field that the Lord can use.
Mm-hmm. Yes. No, I completely agree. One of the things I value a lot about our church here at Prince is that we're very, very much about the mission of God all over the world, right? And so we have a ton of partners all over the world, and so many of our partnerships are strategic partnerships, like what you're talking about. Like I'm thinking about, we sent some college students to an area of Nepal over the summer. We had college students spend all summer in the Himalayas of Nepal. Wow. And we partner with a guy who owns a trekking business, and so people come to pay him to take him up into the Himalayas. And he's a believer, and he treks up there. And so he's trekking up these mountains, and he's passing through these villages that are unreached people groups, people that have never heard the gospel. And he's taking people on these guides, and he's able to share the gospel, and then believers are able to go and join him and go on these guides and meet people. Man, it's just, and again, he would never be in Nepal if he was just I'm going to come and lead a Bible study. That would never happen. It's illegal to do that. But it's not illegal to own a business, and it's not illegal to take people trekking. And so, yeah, man, it's huge. And I think that people trying to discern God's call in their life, they need to think about all right, what has God wired me to do, and how can I do those things strategically for God's glory, so wherever He places me.
I love that. So let's take a little bit of a pivot. I love to ask this question just to kind of get some more information. What's a recent passage of scripture, book, podcast that's really kind of lit your heart on fire and helped build your faith?
Oh, yeah. Great question. I referenced a minute ago that I've been reading through Ecclesiastes, not Leviticus, Ecclesiastes. That has been, I don't know, that book depresses a lot of people, and for a good reason, because he's saying a lot of things are meaningless. Yeah. But the whole point of Ecclesiastes being you can pursue all of these things, these external things, and none of them are going to bring you pleasure. None of them are going to bring you lasting satisfaction. Yeah. That the only thing that someone can do is to cultivate faithfulness, serve the Lord, and do the things that He's called you to do. And so I think that that's just been helpful for me in this season of I don't want to have any, I want to be ambitious for the kingdom, right? I want to be ambitious for the things of God. I want to be ambitious for like I want to utilize my giftings to the most of my ability. I don't want to be ambitious for me. Like I
Yeah.
don't want to have selfish ambition.
Yeah.
And there's always the temptation towards that, right? I
Sure.
imagine you face that in business.
Sure.
I face it in ministry. Like of like you always like there's something that's just off in us that wants to exalt self, right?
Yeah.
And so, but even like presumably Solomon writing this letter, like is saying all these things about about riches and splendor and notoriety and all of this stuff, and he's like, it's all vanity.
Yeah.
It's all chasing after the wind. It's not worth your time. But what is worth your time is to fear God and to walk with the Lord. And it's like that's been really refreshing for me in this season. Especially, I think, I mean, just to speak candidly, like our ministry is growing, and
Yeah.
so like things are going well. And I don't want in the time that things are going well, I don't want to give any room for like pride,
Sure.
selfish ambition, like anything like that. And so like that's just been really helpful. Of like, all right, regardless of the number of college students that are coming or not coming, like I just want to like dwell in the land, cultivate faithfulness. That's not from Ecclesiastes, but like I want to be faithful to
Yeah.
what the Lord has called me to do, and to walk with Him and to trust Him and to not put my self-worth, identity, value in these things that are just a chasing after the wind. They're just vanity in the
I
end.
love that. Yeah.
Um, that's been really helpful. Another book, I actually have it right here, that I read here recently. We're actually reading this as a staff team. You ever read this?
No.
Lead by Paul David Tripp.
No.
Incredible book.
Okay.
And it talks about it's specifically written to like people in more like a pastoral ministry role,
Yeah.
but talking about the importance of leadership communities. And like if you're in leadership, you shouldn't lead in isolation. And that we need communities of people who are leading together, that have a gospel saturated worldview, that are like leading each other, encouraging one another. I know, like I mentioned this earlier, it's easy sometimes, like in a vocational ministry setting, to kind of be like a lone man on an island
Yeah.
and feel like, it's all up to me or whatever. And that means if it's all up to me, then there's a lot of pressure on me to perform. And if there's any insufficiency in me or, whatever, I'm reluctant to share those things because I feel like my job's in jeopardy if I share those
Sure.
things. And so like he's just pushing back against that in that book of like, no, like you need people around you to care for you so that you can lead to the best of your ability.
I love that. I
And
love
so
Paul David Tripp. Definitely we'll pick that
incredible.
book up.
Yeah, that's kind of his probably most famous is that Dangerous Calling book.
Yeah.
This is his kind of like follow up to Dangerous Calling.
Okay.
It's really good.
Yeah. Nice.
So
So what advice would you have for parents? I know you're a new dad, right? Eleanor's how old now?
6.5 months.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So
She just
there's
had to
some
get
things.
4 shots at the
Oh,
doctor this morning.
gosh,
And
I'm
talk
sorry.
about like wanting to control everything.
Yeah, it's
Like just
so
that
sad. God, it's awful.
I'm
That's so
holding
sad.
her afterwards, Matthew. I'm
Yeah.
holding her afterwards. And she'd stop crying. She's fine.
Yeah.
Jillian looks at me. She's like, she's fine. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm
But
not.
I'm not.
Like,
I am not. In this moment, I am not. I've caused this pain, and it's what we said earlier, right? It's a loving dad who says, I know in this moment it doesn't feel like this is good,
right.
but if you will trust me, that this is good. So
Yes.
let me get back to the
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
that's okay. The advice to parents. So you have a very unique perspective, specifically in the ministry that you're in, working with college students every day. What advice would you give as a dad yourself, but also working with a lot of students, young adults that are in such a pivotal time in their life? What advice would you have to parents that are trying to help prepare our kids for that pivotal time?
Man, that's a great question. Again, I'll speak to this just like anecdotally from my own life, like with my parents, and then like what I'm seeing in college students for sure. I mean, I'm 18 years away from that moment with Eleanor,
Sure.
but man, I just think back on like whenever I was in college, uh, I remember having some like really important conversations with my mom and dad where I don't know, like where they finally just began to get real with me about struggles that they faced.
Cool.
Especially whenever they were young and like around my age, college age, and like talk to me about their experience and mistakes that they made. Um, I think that so many parents want to protect their kids from making the mistakes that they made without admitting to their kids that they made those mistakes.
Yeah. It's
Does
great
that make
advice.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to protect you from it. I don't want you to make this mistake, but I don't want to be honest with you that I made this mistake. And so I wish you have to walk that line with wisdom. I
Sure.
understand you can't just like open up to your 8-year-old about everything that you've ever done wrong.
Yeah.
But I remember like riding down the road with my mom whenever I was probably 19 years old. Like I was home from college and I was sharing with her some things that I was struggling with. And she just began to just get really honest with me about mistakes that she had made whenever she was about my age then. And it was just so helpful to me of like, okay, this is not just my mom telling me not to do things because she's like my mom and she wants me to follow the rules. This is my mom telling me not to do things because she's done this and she's experienced a lot of brokenness even to this day.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, and that changed the game for
Yeah.
me. Like I again, like that was over 10 years ago now. And I remember what road we were on. And I remember, without going into all the details of the conversation, I remember
Sure.
what we were talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
I remember
Sure.
her sharing some of those things. And like that meant the world to me, man. It really did. And so I think that, you know, um, there comes a time where you've got to like have those more genuine and honest conversations. Parenting changes, you know, like with your kids now, even now, like you're still in the like, we're telling you what to do and what not to do. Right.
Yeah.
But then there needs to come a point where you kind of shift into more of an advisor role. And like, you're starting to have more like honest conversations with them. And you got to let them go. You got to let them do the thing. Right. And provide them with opportunities to make the mistakes and be honest with you about the mistakes. In a similar vein, like in that way, my dad has always been incredible. Like I've had some really honest conversations with my dad about mistakes that I have made. And he's always been so like receptive and kind in those moments. And
Yeah.
it's not saying that there wasn't like punishment or repercussions or anything like that, but
Sure.
like I remember, I mean, to use a silly, and like I remember, not silly, it's stupid, but I remember being like my senior year of high school, uh, going to this party that I knew I shouldn't have gone to, and I lied to my parents in order to go to the party, right? And I felt so terrible about that, and I remember like coming home and I'm like trying to like act like everything's normal and things aren't normal. And so I tell my dad, like, hey, I need to talk to you. We walk down to the basement and I just tell him everything about like how we snuck out of my buddy's house to go to the party. And like, I just like was just really honest with him. And in that moment, like he just met me with a lot of like understanding, kindness, and just like helping me see the error of but it was also like he had created that environment where
Yeah.
I felt like I could share that with him without getting, smacked or something.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, I don't
He
know.
definitely cultivated that over years.
Right.
That's not
Yeah.
something that you just turn on at 18 and say,
100%.
"Hey, buddy, you can come talk to me." And he's like,
Right.
"No, no, 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 no. You've
Mhm.
not ever given me the opportunity to talk to you." Yeah, I
Right.
love that.
And I still have that relationship with him to this day. Like I call him and I talk to him and process things with him all the time. Um, because he fostered that whenever I was a teenager, you
Yeah.
know? And so I think some of those things, just being honest and being real. I think that there's definitely a culture now of wanting to shelter your kids from all of the bad that's in the world. And I get that. I mean, I'm looking at my little 6-month-old, like if anything ever happens to you, I will like
Yeah.
end whoever tries
Oh
to do
yeah.
anything to you. I'm starting to experience that, but at the end of the day, like you can't. That goes back to our conversation about control. Like you cannot control the outcome of that child's life.
Yeah.
What you can do is you can be really honest with them, and you can walk with them, and you can point them to the God who's in control of all things, and just have real, genuine conversations with them, and not just make a list of do's and don'ts and try to like protect them from every evil in the world, because you're not
Yeah.
even close to powerful enough to make that happen.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
that's fantastic advice. Well, let's end on this, Adam. I appreciate your time very much.
Mhm.
Let's end on what advice would you wish you would have had 10 years ago? If you could go back and talk to 21-year-old Adam, what advice would you give?
Uh, Date Jillian sooner. No,
I love that.
no,
That's
that's yeah.
fantastic.
But man, there's so many different directions I could go with that question. But I think just just take life more seriously. Like I don't like I feel like one of the things that I'm um learning in this season is just like the importance of just being intentional in
Okay.
every area of my life, like just in my health, in my like physical health, like I'm taking exercise and diet a lot more seriously.
Sure.
In my spiritual life, of like I'm actually studying things with a purpose and not just like kind of randomly flipping open my Bible to read something to make myself feel good. In my like community and like I said, cultivating relationships with people that I can confess sin to and be honest with, like those kind of things. I think just if you want, I don't know, we talk a lot here at Prince about like the decisions you make now impact the person that you are becoming,
Yeah.
right?
Oh
And
yeah.
and so life is not about like immediate, like you're not going to become a disciple of Jesus overnight. Like you're not going to become like the version of yourself that you want to be overnight, or the version of yourself that God is trying to cultivate you into overnight. Eugene Peterson talks about that, like to a discipleship of Jesus is all about an apprenticeship of Jesus, like a long obedience in the same direction.
Yep.
He has a book called A Long Obedience in the Same Direction, talking about like it's faithfulness over time that makes a man of God or a woman of God. It's faithfulness over time that makes a good businessman or a good pastor, a good husband, a good wife, father, mother. And I think just being willing to invest the time and not being dissuaded whenever I didn't see immediate results.
Yeah. I love that.
Like being okay with playing the long game.
Yeah, that's what a excellent way, what an excellent thought for us to close on. Well, Adam, brother, I appreciate your time. I love you and your family. I'm thankful to call you a friend. Thank you for the wisdom you shared with us today. Thank you, everybody, for joining along with us here on Belief Builders. We'll see you soon. We're so glad you could join us on this episode of Belief Builders. We hope today's discussion has strengthened your spirit and encouraged you in your own journey of faith. Be sure to follow along for more uplifting stories. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and share this podcast with friends and family. Let us know in the comments if there's someone whose faith journey you would love to hear. We're always eager to share more stories that inspire and uplift. Until next time, keep building a faith that guides your decisions.